Hello there. Hi, this is Laura West from the Center for Joyful Business, and welcome to Joyful Business TV. I am the host of your show, and I'm also the CEO of the Center for Joyful Business. And I'm so glad that you are here. I have an amazing, amazing guest today, a dear, dear friend, colleague, client, George Herrick. I can't wait to tell you more about it. Let me tell you a little bit about the show and what I'm up to. For over 20 years, I have been helping conscious, creative, sensitive, soulful entrepreneurs who are also highly ambitious. They want to grow and share their soul work, right? They really want to make a difference in the world, change people's lives, and they want to make great money doing it. But they don't want to do it in a way that feels like they're using soul crushing strategies and hustle. And so this is all about aligning from the inside out, really releasing your possibilities, getting whatever it is in the way, getting that out of the way so we can release your possibilities and that you can truly flourish. And I am a believer that you are designed to flourish. Like you already have everything you need inside you to flourish. We just need to get some stuff out of the way. So that's one of the reasons why I'm super excited to bring you our guest today, because he's really good at doing that. So today, I am interviewing George Herrick, who I've known for a pretty long time. I want to say back in the 2012 days or something, somewhere around there, maybe even a little earlier. He started in my 30-day passion project, and then our relationship has grown. He's been a client on and off, mostly on. And oh my gosh, it's been so amazing to watch him grow and talk about flourishing. George Herrick's passion and mission are really simple. He believes that creative expression changes the world. He has a best-selling book called Stone Warrior, which is truly amazing. He has a painting and retreat series called Angels in the Dark, and that chronicles parts of his journey with recovery from cancer, addiction, and depression. And he is just on a mission to help others heal through their own creative expression. And I'm really excited to bring him with you today. He is just amazing. So I'm gonna, we'll stop there and I'm gonna let him say something. Welcome, George. You're blushing. Oh, go ahead and you can unmute.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to respond to all of that except to say thank you.
Yes.
um,
I'm just
it,
really glad that you're here.
Me too. Me too. I'm so grateful to you for inviting me to be here today, but also for the years of wisdom and inspiration and friendship and guidance and just all the things. You know, it's been quite a journey we've taken together, and I'm just incredibly grateful for it.
It has been quite a journey. Yeah. And it has been such a privilege to see you. You know, it feels like this flower that was in this like little bit of a bud opened, and it was fascinating as it was. And then to see it actually just totally blossom. And I think it's something I really want to mention this, like blossoming in your 70s is like, that is so freaking cool. you know
Yeah.
and if you get a chance, definitely check George out over at his website, which we'll share in just a moment, and on Facebook, George Herrick, because he does such a great job of um, truly using his authentic marketing style, which we talk about a lot here, and his beautiful brilliance to be able to share his creative expression and really make people feel something, see something, really get in touch with their senses, with their knowings, with their longings, um, and then uh, really, gosh, I can't even explain all that you do there, but it's really inspiring what you post every day.
Well, that's it, isn't it? With our work, Laura, we want to inspire people deeper. We want to so that they can go higher and all of that. But we often forget or we don't talk about that much the senses. And we're living in a three-dimensional sensate world, And if we don't bring the senses into it, we're missing such an integral part of who we are. And so to be able to see things and touch things and hear things and smell things and all of the senses, and bring that into our work in whatever way we can, and just bring it into our lives. It helps all of what and who we are to wake up in a fuller way. So I'm glad
Wow.
you mentioned that piece.
Yeah.
Really important.
You do such a great job of that. And I know, I was just on this trip to Guatemala, as you know, and oh my gosh, I
Total
think that
senses.
was such, yes, that was such a big part was the senses were so alive with the volcanoes and the lake and the textures of the textiles and fabrics and colors and even the old ruins that
Yeah,
they work into current day things. Like there's just so much texture there.
yeah.
And I think that's something you do incredibly well with your art and even with your photography and things that you post on Facebook and with your, it's not just the photography, but the access, the words that
Mm,
you share and really get people to think.
mm.
So
Thank you.
I'm not really going to interview you. I'm just going to talk about how great I think you are.
Well,
How about
if
that?
I if I stop turning red, then you know, I'll I don't know what. You
Right.
just got me tongue tied.
That's right. That's right. I didn't know it was all going to come out, but it's like I've been looking at a lot of your things lately, and it's so part of what I would love to talk about is that journey to get to this place, right? To this place where you are um, finally sharing your creative expression, finally sharing your beautiful brilliance in all its fullness, right? Without apology, and I know that was a dance that we were moving towards and moving towards and moving towards for years. And it's like, I'm curious, what is it like now? Maybe what felt like some key pieces to help you open up?
um, well, certainly, every aspect of our work just kept chipping away at the old messages that I got in childhood, but took on and carried almost like armor for most of my life. And as we kept chipping away at that, the interesting thing about that, and I think this is an integral, in, I can't say it, integral to my work, um, is that there's nothing wrong with those pieces. There's nothing wrong with the wounds and the shadows and the heaviness and the places we feel embarrassed about or ashamed of or whatever. They're a part of us, and I think that's why I love working with the shadows so much, is because once we understand those parts of us, once we're able to sort of go into those shadows and find the gold, that the treasure that's within them, then we can integrate them, and the very things that were holding us back can now help us move forward. And
Can you give
uh,
me an example of that? Because I know you are really big in how are co-leading, co-facilitating a program around shadow coaching, and I know you've always had this penchant for the darkness, right? Penchant for the cave, so to speak.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
I'm curious, like, can you give our listeners kind of an example of the shadow and how when we embrace the shadow, it can actually I don't know if
sure.
you're saying it can become our friend, but certainly it can become our teacher.
Yeah. I wouldn't use the word friend, but definitely ally, teacher, guide. It's sort of the Sherpa for us. But yeah, I'll use the example of my addiction. I was really a hardcore addict, mostly alcohol, but just about anything that I didn't have to use a needle for. And it took me to the street. I mean, legal problems and relationship problems. I lost the first love of my life. Work issues. Lost a great job with a great reputation. All because of addiction, and I wound up on the street. And in the process of recovery, what I realized was I had no idea how to live. I was living with all of the shadows and the darkness of what I took on from my childhood, which were the wounds of my parents. I mean, I can't blame them for it.
Mm.
They experienced their wounds and just passed them on. It's what we do. Um, but in recognizing that I didn't know how to live and surrendering myself to a recovery program, the I'll talk about the 12-step program just for a second. What that does is it takes you deeper into what's not working in your life.
Mm.
And we can't change it if we don't see it. We
Right.
can't transform ourselves if we're not willing to own the parts that need transformation. So I think that's what I mean by going into the darkness and through owning it and working with it, seeing what it's trying to tell us. What's not working in my life. As I began to work with that and integrate it, all of a sudden I did learn how to live my life, and I learned how to really appreciate my life, and I started to blossom. And the very things that held me back, all the judgments, um, I started to paint them. I started to write them. I started to work with them with my clients.
Right.
And lo and behold, here I am talking
Right.
with you. Right?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I love that. I love that. Yeah, I'm such a believer in optimism and positivity, right? And so to me, it's like scaffolding you can build on. But
Hmm.
it's like what I also know is that you can only go so far, on that scaffolding if you don't look at what's really underneath, if you don't look at
Yeah.
shadows and the dark side and the edges of where you hold yourself back or tell yourself stories and things like that. Yeah.
That that is a perfect metaphor because the scaffolding has to be on solid ground.
Mm.
If you build it on sand, if you build it on mud, you're not going to be able to build anything. And and so you have to know what you're building it on, and that means you have to do some exploration. It's not just about the surface. So if you don't do the exploration, you don't really know.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah. Love
great
that.
metaphor. Good.
Yeah. Well, we co-create well together.
We do, we do, we do.
Yeah. Um, so, we're talking to joyful business owners here. And so big part of it is expressing, of having a business is being able to, in your marketing, be able to express yourself and use your creativity. And I think you have really, like, you have grown into this over the years and done such an amazing job. I remember, I don't know, it's probably been 5, 7 years now where you were starting out doing the Karens, the stack of stones that we tend to think of that are the Zen stack of stones. And you started sharing, creating those down by the water and each day sharing one on Facebook. And then you started adding your words to that. So I'd love for you to tell me a little bit about that. Maybe what was the impetus that started, and then what had you keep going and doing that for how long? How long was it? Like 3 years?
Um, I started on November 2nd of 2014
Hmm.
and ended sometime early 2021.
Right. I
And
thought,
I,
yeah.
in all of those years, I missed maybe 8 or 9 or 10 days tops.
Right. Right. Yeah. It was
Yeah,
extraordinary to watch. So tell us about because that feels like a key piece where you really started to embrace your creativity and share it and be willing to be visible with it.
yeah. Great question, and it ties right in with what we were just talking about because the reason I started, my wife and I had separated, and I was living down on the shore um, at a retreat center, and the second the first day that I woke up, I walked down to the shore and I built a cairn. There were some rocks on the beach, and I gathered them and built a cairn. Certainly not the first time I ever built one, but as I sat there, I wrote a meditation about it, about how my heart was breaking, and really, in a way, how my mind was breaking too. I mean, it really was a breakdown. And as you know, that's the
Yeah.
avenue to a breakthrough.
Right.
So, but that takes time. So I started making the cairns every day. I did one the next day, and then the next day, and then the next day. And somehow I knew, I think it was just an intuitive download, that, uh, you know, I would wind up burying what I was learning through the meditations and through the artistic expression. I would wind up burying that back in my own shadow if I didn't expose it, if I didn't put it out in the world.
Mm.
And so even though it was embarrassing, and I was very careful not to bring anything particular about my wife into it, because it wasn't my place to tell her story.
Hmm.
But it was my place to tell my story and to expose my shortcomings, expose my pain, expose all the stuff that otherwise I would keep recycling in the shadow. And I just didn't stop. And after a while, it became a book, um,
And I just want
and
to share, I have my Stone Warrior book handy. There's a picture right there of one of George's beautiful cairns and
mm,
photos and the creative way that you photograph these together. They're not your typical just little set of rocks. It's really quite beautiful. And inside is all these, it's really an interactive kind of book. I'm just going to give everybody a preview. This
mm.
is the George highlight show. um,
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
I mean, I'm proud of what you're creating.
Uh,
And I'm just so excited about your journey, because it's
yeah,
like you're someone that I've seen that, again, just the staying committed, even when it was hard. And like you're talking about the vulnerability, I really hear that vulnerability of exposing your stories and your deeper truth, even though it's not always pretty.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Okay, life is messy. Life is
yeah,
messy, and sometimes it's prickly, and sometimes it feels like a burden, and we're in a swamp or a cave or whatever, tested
yeah,
by fire. It's all of that. But if we hide away from that, the only way to turn off the burners of the stove is to turn off the pilot light, and so we don't get to enjoy the love and the joy and the happiness and all the good stuff, if we're not allowing ourselves to be whole and experience all of it. And in terms of my clients, I mean, that's the critical piece. And what is it you're afraid to look at? What
mhm,
is it that I'm willing to do anything for my business, but not that. It's
right.
like the song, I will do anything for love, but I won't do that. Um, the thing that we are unwilling to do or unwilling to look at is what's holding all the power.
Mm.
And you do this brilliantly from the place of the golden shadow. You take a look at people's upper limits and what they're not willing to do in terms of their greatness,
Right.
and
Because
you,
they're a
you
mirror,
do
right?
that.
They're
Yeah, I mean, you do that absolutely brilliantly, so that people can see, oh, I really can do that. I really am worth that. I really do have this capability. I really do have this beautiful brilliance, to use your words. And then you gently pull us, not pull us, but guide us into that. You allow that to emerge in us. And what I do is maybe, I don't know if it's linear, but maybe a step before that, to see what's holding you back, what's keeping you down,
right,
that by releasing, you can raise yourself up to a level where you can start to work with your golden shadow and break through that.
right, right. Right.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it. It's like we need to kind of work at it from both ends,
yeah,
to
yeah.
be able to go to our edges of, just to use what I've been talking about a lot lately, is really looking at your edges and going to your edges of your shadows, of your those stories that hold you back, of like you said, where you won't go.
Mhm.
And then the stories of your brilliance where you won't go, and be
Yeah,
visible. So to me, it's that fullness of range that gets us out of the kind of the narrow, the narrows part,
yeah,
where we live life, like kind of growing up. I know that it was like that was kind of the acceptable thing. Like you couldn't show your anger and sadness, you couldn't show too much joy. It was sort of like this home in the middle that wasn't a good home. It was like a boring home, and it was like I just always felt like it was in this box of like, why can't we, like, I didn't have the words for it back then, but it was, you know, and then as I started discovering that aliveness that starts happening, um, then it's like things could wake up, right? We can expand the range. And then when you expand the range on one side, you're going to expand the range on the other side, right? I think that's what.
exactly, exactly. I mean, how can we go higher if we don't go deeper? And if we go deeper but not higher, what's the point? You
Right.
know? and so and so it is that perfect balance and what our culture, I think this is kind of what you're saying, what our culture is kind of asking of us is just keep going broader. Don't go deeper, don't go higher, just go broader. Just um, or go, you know, go very narrow
In the
and close up
narrows.
and get
Yeah.
little. Um, so that we don't touch the depth of who we are and we don't touch the heights of what we can achieve. That's for other people, you know.
Mhm.
That's for the heroes that we put up on pedestals and then just love it when we knock them off and discover how human they are, and then do everything we can to put them back up again. But that's us.
Right, right.
Us.
That's us.
Those
And
are all
somehow
actors.
that's, yeah, that's never going to be us, right? We have this, story that's like, oh, well, we are missing a part. We can't do that.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah,
But we couldn't see it if it wasn't a part of us.
right,
So,
right,
so
exactly.
what you do and what I do is help people see that, yeah, you can have that, because you already are it.
Right.
So,
Oh, I love that. Love it.
yeah.
So yeah, tell me about your, because it's not like you woke up one day and then just, it's like you started expressing, but it's a journey, right? That I know for like you do art shows. You just did another version of your Angels in the Dark showing, and tell us a little bit about that, about being seen and your art being, putting your art out there. Whether your art is in the book, whether your art. George also did. I have all his things, Witness Walk Oracle card deck. He did the art for the card deck. There's like exquisite cards. So there's cards, there's the artist gallery showing your book. These are all these expressions that are where you had to be willing to be seen.
Yeah. It's, it's so interesting that I think it's different for all of us. But for me, for whatever reason, each time I put myself out there to be seen in whatever way does not feel easier than the time before.
Mm.
It just feels more necessary. And so I go through the same angst, even doing this interview. I go through the same angst, I go through the same sometimes sleepless nights and all of that. But what I've realized by putting myself out there, first with the going back to the Karens, going on Facebook and then publishing it as a book and then doing workshops and retreats and all the things. What I realize is that it's happening in me, and that's the part that scares me. But it's not just for me,
Mm.
and that's the part that I have to express because it touches other people in a way that raises them up, that I don't even have words. That expands their heart and opens their heart. And so if I didn't show up, then all of this stuff. I talk about swamps. It's like the swamp. The swamp is when there's input but no output, and so everything, and ultimately not even an input, and everything just putrefies and decays. And that's what happens when what's in us just keeps rolling around and never gets expressed. If there's input and no output, it overflows and we leak. We get leaky, and there's no real purpose or direction to what we're doing. And if there's output and no input, then we empty. And if there's no input and no output, then we turn into a swamp. And
That's a great way of saying that, because I think some people, they get that, where everything's churning inside, but then it just starts settling, and then
Yeah,
it's kind of, I mean, it's a living version of flatlining, right?
yeah, yeah.
Right. Or
And
it could be churning inside. I think,
uh-huh.
I've had times where it's churning and it feels like you're gonna burst if you don't figure out how to get it out into the world, and
Yeah,
yet you're contained, if you're afraid to do that and afraid to take those first steps like you did back in the day.
yeah, yeah. So, so if I can continue the shadow metaphor for
The
one more
swamp
minute, 'cause
metaphor,
this
yeah.
stuff this stuff always excites me. So, again, in going into the darkness, in going into the swamp, once I recognize that I'm in the swamp, okay, what's the flower that needs a swamp in order to grow? The lotus.
Hmm.
It needs that dank, dark, putrid, decaying earth for the seed to burst and grow up toward the light, and it becomes one of the most beautiful flowers on the planet.
Mm.
And so once we can recognize that, oh, this is where I am, what's the potential here? Then we can blossom into something that we never could have if we were, you know, in a beautiful garden. We'd have been overrun by weeds and all the other things.
Mhm.
Um, so it's owning the swamp, but we have to recognize that it is a swamp, and we're not meant to live in swamps. We're not lotuses. There's a lotus growing in us, but it isn't us. And so we need to find a way out of the swamp. And again, that's my work. That's your work, and it's the
Wonderful.
it's how I want to be with the people I work with, the people I love, the people I respect, the people I draw to me, the people who I'm drawn to. Um, I'm not afraid of anybody's swamp, and I'm not afraid of anybody's fire or cave or anything. It can be scary to journey with them in those places. It's certainly scary. I started off by saying, that I never really overcame my fear of showing up, but I show up anyway, and I discover that there's a gift here.
Right. I didn't die.
It's okay to be
For
scared.
one.
Huh?
For one is I didn't die. Like I showed
Yeah,
up, I didn't die.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm a cat. I die 1,000 deaths. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. Well, as we're getting ready to wrap up a little bit, this just goes so fast.
Mhm.
Um, I'd love to hear, because now, I mean, you've got a book, you've got a card deck, you're doing retreats, the artist studio, the coaching program, like you've got a full-fledged business happening, lots of things going on. And so, what do you do to start your day? I always love to hear like what are some of the rituals that people do that help both ground them, but also with the focus, because I think that's the creatives burden that we carry is that, we've got so many ideas and so many choices and we get lit up in so many areas, but yet, how do you focus and stay grounded?
Wonderful question. Yeah, I'm a firm believer in ceremony and ritual, as you know, and so my morning ritual involves some movement and a cup of coffee, and sometimes I drum. I always go out to my garden and sit on my patio for a few minutes and maybe take a few pictures of the flowers each day, or the birds that are hovering around, and write. I'm still writing a thing on Facebook every day. Only now, instead of the Cairn meditations, it's Good Morning from the Patio.
Yeah.
So I do that every day as a way of grounding and just getting myself present for the day. And the the question for me is not what is the day going to bring me. That's a part of the question, but also what am I going to bring the day? What what do I need to wake up in me to to offer,
Right.
and what do I need to open up in me to receive?
Mhm.
And I think those are really the keys for me.
I
Yeah,
love that. And it's because it is both, right? You're being called forth, and it's like, I'm looking at a day today where I have like a crazy number of calls back to back, and it's like, okay, so I'm very clear about the practical, clearing the slates and setting myself up for success, with lunch and all that stuff and water. But the who do I need to be, you know, in
yeah,
that kind of day, whatever each person's day holds, right? But also that piece about like what do I need to let go of so that I can be an open vessel as well to be able to receive. And you're so good about creating ritual and ceremony around these intentions.
mm, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's there's a prayer I saw on a poster in the basement of a church many, many, many years ago, probably 40 years ago, that said, "Dear God, thank you for what you have given me, thank you for what you have taken from me, and thank you for what you have left me. Amen."
Mm.
And doesn't that say it all?
It does. It does. Yeah. And I love what we're talking about today. It's like this is the journey to growing a business,
Y-
right? And
Yep.
it's like, yes, there's all the practical type things, but I would say 80, almost 90% of what happens in a business is this inner work, right? This inner work that needs to happen in order to show up and do the authentic marketing and show up consistently, right?
Yeah.
Mm,
Yep.
yeah.
Do I have time to share one more quick thing?
Yeah, sure.
So again, many, many years ago, I'm at one of the first 12-step meetings I ever went to, and there was a speaker there by the name of Inga, and she was probably in her late 70s at the time. And she said, "I can sum up all of the recovery program and really all of life in three phrases." She said, "Know yourself, love yourself, be yourself." Four phrases: be yourself, and share yourself with others. And that's what we do with our work. Show
Mhm.
up, um, you know, love ourselves, but also love our work. Be authentic in what we're doing, and do it in service to others.
Yes, there you go.
That's what I love about life. Love about what
Gotta
we do.
love that about life, love that about business.
Yeah,
It does feel like the mantra that just day in and day out to live that.
yeah,
That's all it is, right? There's so much packed in there. So much
yeah,
packed in there.
yeah.
So as we're wrapping up here, I'd love to, if you could share, how can people find you and hear, start hearing what you're up to?
Yeah, my website is georgeherrick.com. It is under construction again, because it's really very outdated. I didn't keep up with it, Laura. I need coaching.
Come
um,
on back. Come on in.
so so yeah, georgeherrick.com. You can find me on Facebook at George Herrick, and yeah, it's
Yeah. That's great. And I know that's the best place to find George and hear all about his retreats and coaching programs and art,
mm,
book, card deck, all of the different ways that you can bring some of this, the artistic, the ceremony, the ritual, the shadow, all of that into your life, into your business. So
yeah.
I'm a big fan, obviously. Um,
And make friends with the parts that scare you.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
But we
it
don't want
really
to do it. And I do think that you need a coach, right? You need these
yeah.
tools. You need a coach to be able to do it because it's really hard to see your own stuff.
Yeah.
Um, I'm a big believer. I've had coaches for over 25 years. I can't imagine growing a business and trying to put yourself out there and be more visible and be a leader when you don't have somebody else who's helping you, with
Exactly.
that. Yeah.
Exactly. If we could have done it by ourselves, we would have a long time ago.
Right, right, exactly, exactly. Well, this has been such a pleasure to have you here, George. Thank you
Thank
so,
you.
so much. Really fun. I feel like our conversation can keep on going for sure. And so thank you for coming today. We're
Thank you
gonna,
for having me.
yeah, we're gonna wrap up here. And thank you for coming to this episode of Joyful Business TV. We have more episodes if you want to take a look. And you can also find out more over at joyfulbusiness.com. We have this wonderful free gift called Activate Your Abundance, which is has this like amazing meditation about connecting to your universal abundance current that is here and everywhere. And then we have a 7-day journal where you are co creating with the universe. So, really good tools to be able to use in your life and your business where you don't have to be alone. You don't have to be alone. There's so much more going on that we can tap into. All right. Thank you, everybody, for showing up, and I'll see you next week. Thank you for watching this episode of Joyful Business TV. I want to invite you to get more creative strategies and support for growing your business. You can start right now by activating your abundance mindset with a really powerful creative visualization that will help you get into the universal abundance current, one of my favorite things to do. And you'll also get a companion 7-day journal that will help you create a daily habit of co-creating with the universe. These are two powerful resources that you can get started right now to help grow your business and activate that abundant mindset. You just go over to activateabundancegift.com.